Thank you so much. Let me just adjust this a little bit. Gee, you know, I enjoy hearing Ira talk or write about just about anything, but hearing him talk about me, let's just say, pretty thrilling. Ira, thank you for that introduction, and more importantly, thank you for being such an inspiration to me, and I think to everybody who's ever worked in public radio in the past 15 years. Thank you so much for this award. You know, the other day, Peter Sagal from NPR, from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, gave me some advice about tonight. He said, do what I do, just go up and improvise. Let's just say that's never going to happen. However, there might be a little more improvising than I planned on tonight because I just poured some water accidentally on my notes, and every page has several smears on it, so we'll see how well I do. You know, 2 years ago when Joan Didion sat down to talk about the year of magical thinking on Fresh Air, I had the pleasure of breaking the news to her that she'd been nominated for a National Book Award because the nominations were announced in the middle of our interview. I never dreamed that I would be honored at the National Book Awards, and without the ordeal of having to write a book. The National Book Awards are really important to us at Fresh Air because they give us an excuse to rebroadcast an interview with a favorite author, or an occasion to invite on an author we've foolishly overlooked. I've been interviewing authors for more than 30 years, and many of them have been among my favorite guests. That said, book interviews can be pretty perplexing. I once interviewed a political columnist who stormed out after I asked him a question that he didn't address in the book. As he got up to leave, he reprimanded me. He said, if I didn't want to talk about the book, he'd go someplace else. On the other hand, a famous actor, after writing a book, told me he wasn't going to respond to some of my questions because the answers were in his book. And if listeners wanted to find out the answers, well, they'd better buy the book. Then there was the former First Lady who bristled when I asked questions about controversial subjects I assumed she'd intentionally avoided in her book. Making it seem as if that was a sign I'd neglected to do my homework, she asked, have you read my book? And I wanted to ask if she had read her book because I knew it was ghosted. So, why do I love talking to writers? Well, because nonfiction writers can tell us things that we don't already know. And as John Updike said in my first interview with him, novelists can be honest in ways that other people can't afford to be. And this is true, except for when it's not. My interview with J.T. Leroy was so unintentionally revealing that it reached an audience beyond public radio, the judge and jury of a federal court. Fresh Air interviews have been used in many ways, but I believe that was the first time it was entered as evidence in a legal proceeding. But even when a fiction writer isn't a fiction himself, he or she may not be very forthcoming about his or her own life. Fiction allows novelists to get at the truth in ways they might be unable or just unwilling to do when talking about themselves, particularly in the vicinity of a microphone. And I get it, I understand that. A writer has poured his heart out in a book, and then he comes on Fresh Air, and I ask him to pour his heart out some more, only being a lot more personal. Let me give you a recent example. Alice Sebold, who, as you probably know, is the author of the new book, The Almost Moon, and that's about a woman who sacrificed her life taking care of her now elderly, incapacitated, mentally ill mother. The daughter snaps under the pressure and kills her mother. Even though I realize that novels aren't just thinly disguised memoirs, in speaking with novelists, I invariably find myself wanting to ask, what from your own experience led to these perceptions? Now, granted, such a question can be pretty tricky when the subject is matricide. But even so, in Sebold's case, it seemed natural to bring up her own mother's panic attacks and episodic breakdowns, which she described in her first book, her memoir, Lucky. But Sebold declined to talk about her mother on the show, in part because she knew her mother would be listening. I asked her how was it that she could be so revealing about her mother in her book and yet decline to talk about her on the radio. And she explained to me this was because writing is what she does, and she needed her family to understand that and to live with it. But talking on the radio, that was something different, and I understood that. Sometimes when I love a novel, there's a question I'm tempted to ask, but don't. And the question is something like, how did you manage to look into my own heart? How did you find the words to express feelings I didn't even know I had before reading your book? I guess that's a question a lot of readers might like to ask, but it's also a question no writer can ever really answer. I'm really grateful to the many writers who have come on our show over the years. Although this award has my name on it, I share it with a really incredible, and as Ira said, unsurpassed staff of producers and associate producers that work so hard to make Fresh Air the show it is. Our book producer, Amy Salet, has spent the past 20 years walled in by crates of books, finding authors for us. Together, Maureen Corrigan, our book critic, and Phyllis Myers, her producer, point our listeners to countless worthy books and tip them off about a few to avoid. The entire Fresh Air staff contributes to our book interviews, whether it's their primary job or not, editing them, gathering research, or suggesting a guest author. And they are Roberta Shurrock, Monique Nazareth, Ian Chillag, Patty Leswing, Sam Brigger, Jonathan Menjivar, Dorothy Farabee, Joan Tui Westman, and Anne-Marie Baldonado, who I've saved for last, so I could also mention her new baby daughter, Amelia. But actually, the person I've saved for last is Fresh Air's executive producer, Danny Miller. I've been so lucky to work with Danny since 1978, and he remains the show's conscience and its guiding light. WHYY has been home to Fresh Air for over 30 years. My thanks to Bill Siemering, who 20 years ago helped make us a national show, and a lot of thanks to our CEO, Bill Marazzo, for making sure we stay a national show with a secure future. I'm lucky in that I not only get to interview great writers, I live with one, my husband, Francis Davis. His love, yeah. His love of words is contagious. I only wish his way with them was contagious too. This award means so much to me. I wish my parents were still alive so I can tell them about it. And I know if I was able to tell them, they would tell absolutely everybody they've ever known about it too. One last thing. I hope the next time our station execs walk past our book producer Amy's office and see those crates of books stacked up, instead of thinking, fire hazard, EPA violation, they'll be thinking, National Book Awards. Thank you so much for this award. Thank you.